May 24, 1993. El Chapo crawls across an airport parking lot while bullets shred the Buick he escaped from. 7 dead, including a Catholic cardinal in full clerical robes. The world's most wanted drug lord just walked away from a hit that should have killed him. These are 12 times cartel bosses survived assassination attempts. May 24, 1993, in Guadalajara International Airport at 3:45 in the afternoon. El Chapo Guzman steps out of his green armored Buick, ready to board an Aeromexico flight. He has no idea that a kill team led personally by Ramon Arellano Felix is already sweeping the parking lot, looking for him. A corrupt judicial police agent had sold him out. The Tijuana cartel knew exactly when and where to find him. The gunmen were Logan Heights gang members from San Diego, killers trained by the Arellano Felix brothers. They moved through the lot with machine guns hidden under their coats. El Chapo's bodyguard spotted them first. "Run! Run! There are people with guns!" El Chapo hit the ground and started crawling. What happened next was a catastrophe. Parked a few feet from El Chapo's Buick was an identical-looking white Grand Marquis. Inside that car sat Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo of Guadalajara, in full clerical robes and with his driver. Unfortunately, the gunmen opened fire on the wrong car. They riddled the Grand Marquis with at least 38 bullets at point-blank range. 14 struck the Cardinal and 11 hit his driver. Meanwhile, El Chapo was crawling toward the terminal. He and his lieutenant Arturo Beltran Leyva climbed onto a baggage conveyor belt, rode it through to the other side of the airport, hijacked a taxi, and disappeared. 7 dead, including a cardinal of the Catholic Church. A declassified U.S. intelligence report later confirmed it. The Arellano Felix brothers tried to kill El Chapo Guzman, but instead, they killed a cardinal instead. It was the day the world first heard the name Chapo. June 26, 2020, at 6:38 in the morning. The chief of police of Mexico City is being driven down Paseo de la Reforma on his way to a security cabinet meeting with the mayor. Little does he know there is a trap waiting for him. A flatbed truck pulls into the intersection at Monte Blanco, blocking traffic. About 8 men dressed as municipal road workers pop up over the side of the truck. They are not road workers. They are CJNG sicarios. And they are holding Barrett, .50 caliber rifles, AK-47s, and fragmentation grenades. Then the shooting starts. Roughly 28 gunmen in total open fire on Omar Garcia Harfuch's armored Suburban. They pump more than 400 rounds into the vehicle. They throw grenades as they try to crack the armor open like a tin can. Inside, Garcia Harfuch's 2 longtime bodyguards are killed instantly in the front seats. A woman walking to work, a merchant from the state of Mexico, dies on the sidewalk from a stray round, and multiple officers are wounded. But the Suburban holds. Garcia Harfuch takes 3 bullets and absorbs shrapnel in his knee and his arm, but he is alive and conscious. And after a few hours later, from a hospital bed, he posts a message to Twitter that becomes one of the most famous tweets in modern Mexican history. He says in Spanish, "This morning we were cowardly attacked by the CJNG. 2 of my comrades and friends lost their lives. I have 3 bullet impacts and several shrapnel wounds." He named the cartel, by name, in public. Here's what makes this story matter. The man who ordered the hit was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, boss of the CJNG. Years later, Garcia Harfuch would become Mexico's Secretary of Security under President Claudia Sheinbaum. And in February 2026, he would lead the operation that finally killed El Mencho in a cabin in the mountains of Jalisco. The man El Mencho tried to murder at 6:38 in the morning is the same man who eventually took El Mencho out.
The surveillance images show the attack was brazen. Monday morning around 1 a.m. in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, screenshots show Jesus Alfredo Guzman sitting at a table with friends. Moments later, he's abducted by men armed.
August 15, 2016. Puerto Vallarta, La Leche Restaurant, a high-end seafood place decorated entirely in white. Ivan Archivaldo Guzman, son of El Chapo, is celebrating his 33rd birthday with 16 friends, his brother Jesus Alfredo, and a dozen heavily armed bodyguards. The Chapitos believe they are untouchable. Their father is El Chapo. Their cartel runs the country. What could go wrong inside a restaurant they essentially own? Then the door opens. About 20 CJNG sicarios walk in. They do not fire a single shot. According to the restaurant's own chef, in 34 seconds, they had subdued both Guzman brothers, beaten them with their weapons in front of the security cameras, and walked 6 men out into the night. The most powerful narco princes in Mexico were just kidnapped at their own birthday party. By rivals, in public, without firing a bullet. Everything was on the surveillance footage. The CJNG had just delivered the most humiliating message possible to the Sinaloa cartel. But here's the thing, they were taken to die. Years later, Sinaloa Lieutenant Damaso Lopez El Minilik told Proceso magazine the truth.
They took them to kill them. That was the order.
So how did they survive? El Chapo himself. From inside the maximum security walls of Altiplano prison, the world's most famous drug lord got a message to El Mencho. The message was simple. El Mencho's son, Ruben Oseguera, was sitting in a different prison, and El Chapo could have him reached. The deal was delivered word for word.
As you give me back my sons, I'll give you back yours.
5 days later, the Chapitos walked free. Years later, Ivan Archivaldo gave an interview about that night to a Belgian magazine.
He said, "The only lesson I learned from this is that I can't trust anyone, not even my own shadow. Fortunately, the people who kidnapped me spared my life. This is the only reason I am still with my family and friends."
It might be the most expensive prisoner swap in cartel history. June 11, 1994, at 2 in the morning in Guadalajara, Jalisco. The Hotel Camino Real, a luxury hotel, was hosting a debutante ball and a private birthday party for a Sinaloan businessman named El Kiki Fernandez Uriarte. Ismael El Mayo Zambada, co-founder of the Sinaloa cartel, had been invited to the party. Outside the hotel entrance, a Toyota packed with explosives sits idling in the dark. The men inside the car believe El Mayo is upstairs at the celebration, but no one else knows that they are about to detonate one of the largest car bombs in Mexican history. They light it. The blast shreds the front of the hotel. Windows shatter for blocks. The tour bus of the norteño band Los Huracanes, parked nearby, is destroyed. The men inside the bomb car are vaporized along with their target. 5 people die as nearly a dozen are injured. But there is just one problem with the plan. El Mayo never showed up. Whether he got a tip or whether his security simply told him to skip a public party, no one knows. But while the Toyota was exploding in front of the Hotel Camino Real, El Mayo Zambada was somewhere else entirely, probably already back in the mountains of Sinaloa. The hit, according to later investigations, came from the Arellano Felix brothers in Tijuana, the same family that tried to kill El Chapo at the airport 1 month earlier. They were trying to wipe out the entire next generation of Sinaloa leadership in a single summer. El Mayo would go on to survive every cartel war for the next 30 years. He survived the Beltran-Leyva schism. He survived Los Zetas. He even survived the rise of CJNG. But he was never photographed in custody until July 2024, when his old partner's son tricked him into a meeting, threw a hood over his head, and flew him to Texas. Asked once how he stayed alive so long, El Mayo gave one of the most haunting quotes in cartel history. He said, "The bush is my home, my family, my protection, my land, the water I drink." And then he said, "I am afraid, all the time." May 1st, 2015, in the morning, the mountains near Villa Purificación, Jalisco. The Mexican federal government has just launched its most ambitious operation in years. Operation Jalisco. The mission is simple: capture or kill the founder of the CJNG, Nemesio Ceguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho. 3 federal helicopters carrying 18 agents descend toward El Mencho's convoy. What the agents do not know is that someone in their own chain of command has already sold them out. El Mencho's gunmen are waiting, and they are not waiting with rifles. They are waiting with a .50 caliber Browning machine gun, a Barrett anti-materiel rifle, and a Soviet-made RPG-7 rocket launcher. The Federales had planned to parachute out of the choppers and continue on foot. They never got the chance. The CJNG fired the RPG into the air. The rocket tore through the rotor of the lead helicopter. The chopper caught fire and spiraled into the mountains. One of the men inside that burning helicopter was a federal officer named Ivan Morales. That morning, before he left for work, his wife had told him she was pregnant. He was going to be a father for the first time. Eventually, he survived the crash. Barely. Third-degree burns over 70% of his body. 15 reconstructive surgeries. 8 of his fellow officers did not make it. 9 federal personnel were killed in total. While the helicopter was still burning, El Mencho's men launched coordinated attacks across the state of Jalisco. They torched vehicles. They blew up gas stations. They attacked government buildings. They wanted the world to see what trying to touch El Mencho looked like. Then President Enrique Peña Nieto vowed that day to dismantle the CJNG. He didn't. Mexico did not seriously attempt to take El Mencho out again for nearly a decade. He stayed in those mountains, untouched, the most powerful drug lord in the Western Hemisphere, for another 11 years. A retired DEA agent named Mike Donahue summed it up later as he said, "That tactic worked for him. They know he'll do it again." It is the only time in modern history a drug cartel shot down a military helicopter and walked away. November 17, 1995. Around 10 at night in Mexico City. The Bali High, a fashionable seafood restaurant. At one of the tables sits Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the boss of the Juarez Cartel, the man American authorities call the wealthiest drug trafficker in the world. He owns a fleet of Boeing 727 jets that fly Colombian cocaine across Latin America. His nickname is Lord of the Skies. He is having dinner with his wife. Then a dozen men walk through the front door of the restaurant carrying machine guns held flat against their bodies like briefcases. At the head of the hit squad is Ramon Arellano Felix, the same Ramon who tried to kill El Chapo at the airport, the same family that had bombed the Hotel Camino Real trying to get El Mayo. Now they were going after the richest narco in the world. Their goal was to stop Amado Carrillo from being crowned the new boss of bosses of all Mexico. The parking lot exploded into a firefight first. Carrillo's outer bodyguard ring engaged the attackers before they could reach the dining room. Bullets ripped through cars and storefronts. Then the gunman made it inside and opened fire across the restaurant. Amado and his wife were already moving. His security detail rushed them through the kitchen, past terrified staff, and out a back exit. One bodyguard caught a bullet, shielding the boss as they reached the getaway car. Ramon Arellano Felix himself was wounded in the chaos. Amado escaped, and the Lord of the Skies kept his crown. But here's the dark joke at the heart of his story. Surviving an ambush by the most feared sicario in Mexico is not what killed him. 2 years later, on July 4, 1997, Amado Carrillo Fuentes checked into a private hospital in Mexico City for plastic surgery. He wanted liposuction and a new face because he wanted to disappear. But he died on the operating table because a respirator malfunctioned. 4 months later, the 2 surgeons who performed his operation were found tortured to death. Their bodies were sealed inside steel drums filled with concrete. A man who survived submachine guns in a packed restaurant was killed by an elective cosmetic surgery.
Well, Escobar is not universally loved. He was the target earlier this year of an assassination attempt, one that involved British mercenaries.
In 1989, the Cali Cartel had just paid a Scottish ex-British SAS commando named Peter McAleese the sum of $1 million. The mission is one sentence long: kill Pablo Escobar at his estate, Hacienda Nápoles. This is not a story you hear often. It deserves its own chapter in the Escobar mythology. The Cali bosses, the Rodriguez Orihuela brothers, and Pacho Herrera had decided that Colombian sicarios were not enough. They wanted real military operators. So they recruited Michalis, a man who had served with the elite SAS and fought as a mercenary across Africa. Michalis put together a team of 12 ex-soldiers. They trained in secret. They studied maps of Hacienda Nápoles. They knew where Pablo slept. They knew where his bodyguards posted. They knew the helicopter-approached paths through the Colombian mountains. The plan was a helicopter assault, fly in low, hit the estate before security could respond, kill Escobar in his bed, and fly out. But they never made it. The helicopter carrying the assault team crashed in the Colombian mountains before they could reach Hacienda Nápoles. The crash left Michalis and his entire team stranded deep in Escobar's territory, surrounded by his sicarios, surrounded by his peasant informants, and surrounded by the jungle. They aborted the mission. They escaped the country with their lives. Barely. Pablo Escobar never knew how close he came. A team of professional soldiers financed by his greatest enemy had been minutes from his bedroom when their helicopter went down. Michalis gave interviews about it decades later. He died in his 80s, an old man in Scotland. The team he led survived. But here's the thing. The Cali cartel was not done trying. They were just getting started. And the failure of the Michalis mission convinced them that if professional soldiers couldn't kill Pablo, they would have to do it the Colombian way, with dynamite. Late 2013, the state of Michoacán is on fire. The Knights Templar Cartel, a religious narco group that quotes scripture while extorting lime farmers, has triggered the rise of armed citizen militias. Federal troops are flooding the region. At the top of the most wanted list sits a former elementary school teacher named Servando Gomez Martinez. Code name, La Tuta, co-founder and last surviving leader of the Knights Templar. The bounty on his head is $2.5 million. What does La Tuta do? He goes on television, while thousands of federal troops sweep the Michoacán mountains looking for him. La Tuta records a sit-down interview with Channel 4 News out of the United Kingdom. He sits in front of the camera with a graying beard, a baseball cap, and jeans, and tells the reporter he will fight to the death before he surrenders. He starts a YouTube channel. He calls into Mexican radio talk shows. He is broadcasting his location, almost daring them to come get him. But they can't. For nearly 2 years, La Tuta survives the largest manhunt in modern Mexican history. He survives multiple federal raids. He survives the death of his co-founder, Nazario El Mas Loco Moreno, who was actually killed by the Navy twice. The first death announcement turned out to be wrong, but they got him for real in 2014. Even at that, La Tuta keeps slipping away. Mansion raids find his food still warm. Safe houses find his clothes still on the bed. Every farmer in the Tierra Caliente is on his payroll. He bragged on camera that he would die before he was caught alive. February 27, 2015, at around 3 in the morning, Morelia. An elite federal police unit kicks in the door of a small safe house, and La Tuta is captured. Without a single shot fired. He took the cuffs without a fight. 55 years for one kidnapping case. Then a separate 47 years for drug trafficking. Then he was extradited to the United States in August 2025. The school teacher who started a religious cartel survived 2 years of national manhunt by going viral. And then he just got tired.
One of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives is now in custody. The Department of Justice says Rafael Caro Quintero was known as the Narco of Narcos. He was captured by Mexican forces on Friday. He is the drug lord behind the killing of a U.S. federal agent.
Let me ask you a question. What do you do if you murder a DEA agent, get sentenced to 40 years in a Mexican prison, and then a corrupt judge just lets you walk out the front door 28 years in? If you are Rafael Caro Quintero, you do not retire. You build a new cartel. August 9th, 2013. A Mexican state court releases Caro Quintero on a technicality. The man who in 1985 ordered the torture and murder of DEA Special Agent Enrique Kiki Camarena walks out of Puente Grande prison in broad daylight. The U.S. Justice Department is informed only after he is already free. He vanishes within hours. For the next 9 years, Caro Quintero rebuilt. He launches the Caborca Cartel in Sonora. He wages a brutal war against the Sinaloa cartel's Chapitos faction for control of the Arizona border. The FBI puts him on the 10 most wanted fugitives list. The State Department offers a $20 million reward, and Caro Quintero survives all of it. Now in his late 60s, he is an old man living in the brush, hunted by every American agency that exists. July 15, 2022, midday, the mountains near San Simon, Sinaloa. Mexican Marines are sweeping the bush. A search dog named Max flushes Caro Quintero out of the bushes where he is hiding. He is 69 years old. He is unarmed as he surrenders. But the survival story is not over. At nearly the exact moment Caro Quintero is being arrested, a Mexican Navy Black Hawk helicopter supporting the operation crashes in nearby Los Mochis. 14 of the 15 personnel on board were killed. The Navy denied any connection between the crash and the capture. An unnamed American official told CBS News the crash was linked to the operation. Caro Quintero was not on board. The cause was never publicly resolved. He spent the next 2 years in Altiplano. February 27, 2025, the Sheinbaum administration extradited him to the United States, along with 28 other top narcos in a mass turnover. He now faces federal charges in New York for the murder of Kiki Camarena. Caro Quintero survived 28 years in prison. He survived 9 years on the FBI's most wanted list. He survived a cartel war with the Chapitos. The only thing that finally got him was a dog named Max. November 9th, 1999. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, Matamoros, Tamaulipas, La Aurora neighborhood. In front of a bright pink mansion that everyone in town knows belongs to the Gulf Cartel. A white Ford Bronco with diplomatic plates cruises slowly past the mansion. Inside are 3 men: DEA Special Agent Joe Dubois, FBI Special Agent Daniel Fuentes, and their confidential informant, a Mexican journalist pointing out cartel stash houses. The Americans are taking pictures. What happens next becomes one of the most legendary standoffs in DEA history. About 15 Gulf Cartel gunmen surround the Bronco with their guns drawn. They have AK-47s. They have the agents boxed in on a residential street in the middle of cartel territory. Walking up to the driver's window is Ociel Cardenas Guillen himself, the boss of the Gulf Cartel, the man Mexicans called El Mata Amigos, the friend killer, because he had murdered his own business partner to take over the organization. Standing next to him is his brother Antonio, Tony Tormenta. Cardenas orders the Americans to get out of the vehicle. They refuse. For several minutes, 2 federal agents stared down 15 cartel sicarios in broad daylight. Agent Dubois starts talking. He tells Cardenas very calmly that if he kills U.S. federal agents on Mexican soil, every American agency that exists will hunt him down until he is dead or in an American prison. No negotiation, no escape. Cardenas thought about it. This is not the boss surviving. This is the boss almost killing himself by killing 2 Americans. He let them go. He told them never to come back. It was the worst decision he could have made, and the best. Dubois' words came true. The U.S. government launched a manhunt called Operation Impunity 2. In March 2003, the Mexican military closed in on Cardenas during a shootout in Matamoros. He was captured, extradited in 2007, sentenced to 25 years in U.S. federal prison, and forced to forfeit $50 million in 2010. Released in September 2024. A boss survived an attack he started against the wrong target, and it took 25 years out of his life. April 21, 2012, late in the evening at Monclova, Coahuila, the heart of Los Zetas territory. A private party is in full swing. Hundreds of guests, norteño music, free-flowing tequila. On the stage stands Banda Jerez, a popular regional Mexican group, playing a live set for the crowd. Somewhere on that dance floor stands Heriberto Lacano, Z3, the founder and absolute boss of Los Zetas. a former Mexican Army Special Forces soldier trained by U.S. and Israeli instructors before he deserted with his entire unit and became the most feared paramilitary cartel in history. He is the second most wanted man in Mexico, right behind El Chapo. Outside the venue, Mexican federal forces are quietly closing in. Their intelligence is good. They know Lascano is inside. They begin their move. Then the band on stage does something no one expected. Banda Jerez stops mid-set and dedicates the next song to a man in the crowd, to El Lasca. By name, the crowd cheers. The band launches into the song. It is unclear to this day whether the band knew the raid was happening, but the dedication acted like a warning siren. Lascano didn't run for the front door. He walked, casually, out a side exit and into the night. And by the time federal troops swept the venue, the boss of Los Zetas was gone. He survived, but only for 6 more months. October 7th, 2012, in Progreso, Coahuila, a baseball stadium in a small town. The Mexican Navy receives a tip that armed men are loitering outside. A patrol pulls up. Lascano and a single bodyguard are sitting in a white van. The cartel boss does not surrender. Lascano and his bodyguard hurl fragmentation grenades at the Marines and open fire. The shootout is short and brutal. Both men are killed, and 1 Marine is wounded. Inside the van, the Navy finds a grenade launcher, 12 fragmentation grenades, a rocket-propelled grenade system, 2 assault rifles. But the story does not end there. The Navy turns the body over to a funeral home in the town of Sabinas. Before fingerprints can be officially confirmed, Z40 sicarios storm the funeral home and steal the body. To this day, conspiracy theories swirl that Lascano survived again. The Mexican government insists the body was his, but the only way to truly prove it was burned with the rest of the corpse. A song dedicated from a stage saved his life once, but he never got that lucky again. January 13th, 1988, at 5 in the morning, in Medellin, Colombia. El Poblado neighborhood, the Monaco building. An 8-story luxury fortress that serves as Pablo Escobar's family residence and the headquarters of the Medellin Cartel. The building has a sculpture garden, a private art collection, and walls thick enough to withstand a small army. Asleep inside are Pablo, his wife Maria Victoria, his son Juan Pablo, and his 3-year-old daughter Manuela. Outside on the street sits a Toyota loaded with 80 kilograms of dynamite. This bomb is not a message. This bomb is the opening shot of the longest, bloodiest narco war in history. The Cali cartel has decided that Pablo Escobar can no longer be allowed to exist. Their bosses, the Rodriguez Orejuela brothers and Pacho Herrera, want the United States cocaine market for themselves, so they pull a page from Pablo's own playbook. They bomb him. 5 a.m. exactly. The Toyota detonates. The blast shears the facade off the Monaco building. It shatters windows for 4 city blocks. It rips the foundations of the building apart. 3 people die in the street. At least 10 are wounded, but Pablo's bunker holds. The family was sleeping on the upper floors when the bomb went off at street level. Pablo, Maria Victoria, Juan Pablo, and Manuela all survive. The little girl, 3 years old, sustains permanent partial deafness in one ear from the shockwave. That fact alone will haunt Pablo Escobar for the rest of his life, and it will haunt Colombia even more. Because Pablo's response to the Monaco bombing was not retaliation, it was apocalypse. November 27th, 1989. An Avianca passenger jet, Flight 203, is destroyed by a bomb planted in midair. 107 people die on board, 3 more killed by falling wreckage. The bomb had been meant to kill presidential candidate Cesar Gaviria Trujillo. Gaviria wasn't on the plane. December 6th, 1989. A truck containing approximately 9,000 kilograms of dynamite is detonated in front of the DAS headquarters in Bogota. 57 people die instantly. 2,248 are injured. 14 city blocks are destroyed. By the end of Pablo's war, more than 1,000 Colombian police officers had been murdered. 3 presidential candidates were dead. An attorney general was dead. Dozens of judges were dead. This is what one surviving assassination attempt cost. The Monaco building itself stood scarred and crumbling for the next 31 years. February 22, 2019, it was demolished by controlled implosion. In its place rose a memorial park called Inflexion, dedicated to the thousands of victims of Pablo's war. Pablo himself was killed on a rooftop in Medellin on December 2, 1993, the day after his 44th birthday. The Colombian search block tracked his phone signal during a call to his son. He went down with 2 bullets in his head, but it all started with an 80-kilo Toyota and a family man surviving in his bunker.